Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Rams Fast 15. I am Dr. Daniel Jourdan, Member at Large, SAM Rams Board, and I'll be your host. This presentation is designed to give you critical content you need in 15 minutes flat. Today's goal is to provide information to help you navigate litigation career support as you enter the EM job market. Today's presentation is hosted by SAM, Rams, and the SAM Industry Advisory Council. Members of SAM Industry Advisory Council are Atlantic Pension Planning, American Physician Partners, BioFire Diagnostics, Integrative Emergency Services, Integrated Wealthcare, and Envision Physician Services. I encourage you to visit IAC member websites for additional information on physician wellness and support for emergency medicine practitioners. The clock is ticking, so let's jump right in. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Stefanie A. Simmons, Vice President of Patient and Clinician Engagement at Envision Physician Services. Welcome, Dr. Simmons.
Good morning, Daniel.
Key topics we'll be discussing today regarding litigation career support are: why is getting sued so stressful? What are the chances of getting sued? How can I protect myself from the worst parts of getting sued? And who can I talk to? So, Dr. Simmons, I'll pose this to you. Why is being sued so stressful?
Well, you know, as physicians and APPs as well, we really identify ourselves with our job. So it can feel like a personal attack when we're sued. Like there's not just an opportunity for the complainant to get some money or an outcome they want, but that they're attacking us personally. And because we care about what happens to our patients, and when there's a lawsuit, there's often been an adverse patient outcome. We already feel bad about what's happened. Lawsuits can take up a lot of time, mental time, actual time in our lives. And it can also complicate our relationships at work because sometimes the co-defendants may be working from the hospital, maybe other members of the team. So add all that up and it can take a lot out of a clinician and cause a lot of stress.
Yeah, that seems fair. So what's the likelihood of getting sued anyway?
Well, as an emergency medicine physician, through a full lifetime career, there's about a 75% chance that you'll be sued. 40% of people have more than one lawsuit. So this does vary a little bit by where you practice. And some states have a higher lawsuit prevalence, others have lower prevalence. And that just depends on the tort reform, the non-economic damages that are available to complainants, and a little bit of local culture as well.
Wow, those are kind of terrifying numbers.
That's why it's important to be prepared.
For sure. So how do I protect myself?
Well, so first things first, you want to practice evidence-based, thorough medicine. It can be really easy to get caught up in, making sure that we're seeing patients efficiently and not doing the full exam that we're saying we're doing, or really thinking through the process on each patient, but that's critical. You want to document what you do, because a lot of times during litigation, you're being asked to look back at a chart that may be years in the past, and you're going to need to testify based on your documentation. So you want to make sure you document accurately everything you do and thoroughly. So do what you said you did and document what you did as well. We know that communicating and connecting with patients it's the right thing to do for patient care, but it is also protective against lawsuits, because patients that know what is happening during their care and have that open chain of communication are more likely to ask you questions than try to get answers in court. They also will know more about your motive, right? Like you are there to take good care of them or their family member. And then you also want to make sure that you're taking time to take care of yourself, that you're maintaining professional well-being, have connections with your family, with friends, that you're sleeping, eating, nutritious foods, exercising, all of those things to care for yourself, because we know that self-care helps us make better decisions.
Yes, ma'am. So who should I talk to if I'm sued?
So if you receive a notice of intent, the first thing to do is to get in contact with your legal counsel or risk department through your employer. That may be a hospital if you're a resident, or your employer if you belong to a medical group. So they may have a coach or a counselor or a peer support program that you can participate with to have an additional person to talk things through with. Your legal counsel, you can also talk things through with. If they don't have a coach, counselor, or peer support program, you should ask what resources are available, because there may be additional resources you can tap into. And it's often very helpful for people to start a relationship with a therapist when they're being sued, so that they have a protected relationship that they can use to talk things through with. And then, of course, your spouse.
Well, that's some good advice. All right. So in summary, you're not alone. Many EM docs go through a similar situation. You have options to discuss this. Shame and self-criticism can be dangerous, and negative self-talk can make things worse. Does that sound right?
That's absolutely right. And I think, the shame and self-criticism and the negative self-talk, it's really important piece to bring out, because people can get trapped in a loop where they are feeling personally attacked. They're also saying things to themselves that they wouldn't say to a colleague or a friend. And it can really spiral into some really dangerous thinking.
All right. Now I think we can move on to some questions and answers, if you don't mind. Question number one, why do patients sue us?
A lot of times patients are seeking answers to why something happened. If there was a bad outcome for themselves or for their family member, they want to know why that happened, and they want some accountability. And that's why that relationship is so important, is if you can provide some of those answers and accountability ahead of a lawsuit, that may help protect you from a lawsuit. Also, they may be seeking economic damages if they're unable to work, or if they've got a devastated family member who's going to need care. They may be seeking help for that, and then additional non-economic damages.
Question number two, why is there so much variation geographically?
Well, there are some differences across the country, state by state, in the laws in terms of what damages are allowed to be asked for in a lawsuit. And then there's also just cultural differences in different parts of states and cities in terms of whether bringing a lawsuit is something that is just sort of accepted in the community as well.
Okay. What about, why do doctors take lawsuits so personally?
Gosh, well, I mean, it feels like a personal attack, right? You've shown up, done your best, worked very hard to care for someone, and it can feel like, in addition to trying to get answers or seeking economic damages, the patient themselves, who you've worked so hard for, is calling you a bad doctor. So I think, one of the things that can be very important is for people to realize that this is a transaction, that a lawsuit is a transaction, and that the attorney for the patient or for their family is going to do their best to really make it seem like the standard of care wasn't met, and that that can not only feel like a personal attack, but your care can be attacked, and that often feels like it's a personal attack, not just a professional transaction, in terms of the litigation. And so many times clinicians will feel like the lawsuit is very personal.
Sure. Well, with all that being said, what can I do now?
Well, I think that the best thing to do as a resident or early in your career is to educate yourself. Understand what the process is. Talk to your attendings about experiences they might have had, and really learn how you can protect yourself in terms of your documentation and your medical care, so that you're doing the best job possible for patients, and also protecting yourself so that you've got a great medical record and great decision making.
What if it's not me? How can I support a colleague who's going through a lawsuit?
That's a great question, because there's a stigma around talking about what you're going through. you're not supposed to discuss the details of the case with other people. So sometimes people will also not talk about their feelings with other people, either because they're ashamed of what's happening or they don't want to slip up and talk about the details of the case. Well, that makes things even worse because in addition to going through something really tough, you're also feeling very isolated. So if you know someone is going through a lawsuit, and just being there for them as a friend and not avoiding them because they're going through this, just, picking them up for a cup of coffee, asking them how things are going in general. You can avoid talking about the details of the case, but still offer support for what they're going through. And that can make all the difference for someone.
Sure, that does sound helpful. Okay, where can I turn if I'm stressed or anxious during or after a lawsuit?
Well, there's a few options. Some employers, some hospitals will offer peer support or coaching resource. So you can always ask if that's available through your employer. You can start a relationship with a counselor or therapist, and that's often very helpful for people. Some legal counsel, some attorneys are very helpful in answering questions and also addressing fears, or they may be able to advise you in terms of what other resources you can use. So I think that the most important thing is not to feel like there's no one you can talk to, but rather seek those appropriate people, those appropriate resources, so that you're protected, you have the best possible outcome with the litigation, but you also have the best possible outcome for you as a person.
Wow. Well, thanks, Dr. Simmons. That was all quite helpful.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for the questions.
Finally, members of the Industry Advisory Council would like to provide you with additional resources associated with litigation career support. You can also visit the IAC webpage for additional professional development resources. This presentation will be available on the Industry Advisory Council's webpage on sam.org. Feel free to access it anytime. All right, that's the last comment for this presentation. Thank you again to Dr. Simmons for joining us and for sharing your thoughts and incredible insights and for helping SAM members navigate litigation career support a little bit better. Stay safe and stay well.
Take care.